Shalom Aleichem. Okay, so I want to share something that I read this Shabbos, and it's not something that I cannot share. And I want to jump into it, talking obviously to whoever I usually speak to, people that want to hear. This is a cipher. It's actually called a kuntres, which is a small cipher that was recorded, was written. The person that wrote it, his name was Shimon Fuerst, Rebbe Shimon Fuerst. He has a skomas in this from our generation. Gedolim, Ko'onim. I'll give you over 4 names, I think, that we all know, maybe 5. This is while he was alive. Hagun Hagudel, Rebbe Eliezer Shach from Ponevezh. He has a skoma from Hagun Hakudish Rebbe Yoel Teitelbaum, Satmer Rebbe, Schistig Leini. He has a skoma from Hagun Hakudish Rebbe Yisrael Alte Admor Meran Harabi Meger. This is all while they were alive. Okay? He has a skoma from Hagun Hagudel Rebbe Yaakov Kamenetsky, Torah Vedas. He has a skoma Hagun Hagudel Meran Rebbe Moshe Feinstein. Moshe Feinstein, Rosh from the Fuerst Yerushalayim. There's more, but this is why I knew right away I can go through this. I went through this. Oh boy, there's a message. There's a recording in this. This is what it looks like, and this is meant for every single individual, Yid, no matter your age, if you're able to hear this, because he was actually, as we'll soon see, speaking directly to Bucharim. That means from the age 13 years old, he was talking directly, and he had a skumas from these Gedolim to go and talk straight to these boys. I know I'm one of those boys, without a question. 36 years old today, but I know that without a question, he was talking to me. Halavai, I would have given everything in the world to hear this message. I don't know if I could have heard it earlier, but now that I heard it, it's my obligation. It's sitting with me already for a few days since Shabbos. I'm going to go share it now with the Olam. It's my tefillah to Hashem that this recording should be heard, and it should be shared with whoever is possible. Because I truly believe that our whole existence as Klal Yisrael is dependent on this message in this. I'm going to jump in. It's about 10 pages long. Solution Kodesh. I want to do the whole thing in one shot. You listen, whoever wants to listen. Durim, words that come from the heart, we know, goes to the heart. And these words, no question about it, are coming, in this cipher, is coming from his heart. No question about it. I know it went to my heart. And these words that I'm giving right now, before I started, it's coming from my heart. Okay, I'm going to jump in. I'm not going to go through the haskomas now. I'll do it after. But I want to jump straight into it. I'm going to start with his hakdoma, but I'm going to jump in. I'm going to go. Let's start, yeah? He says, Hadvurim ha'amirim bekintres zeh. He says, these words that's in this kintres, shetzaysi b'shnas tufshin kov ches. Now we're tufshin pai gimel, right? This is like 50 years ago. Chuf Ches, yeah? Lamed, I'm just counting the years. So Chuf Ches, Lamed Ches, Mem, Nian, Samach, Ayin. It's over 50 years ago. Okay? He says, Usi Pairis, he says that it already had results. But Nichsi Lalive, Harbi Rosh Yeshivas, it went into the hearts, of many Rosh Yeshivas, continuing. It believed B'choida Yeshivas Lamayos, and it went into the hearts of Bucharim from Yeshivas by the hundreds. Continuing. Imai Mechtum Abu Malai Kesaider, he says from the letters that he got back, constantly from whoever read this, that Dati, I know Shalayv HaBucharim Boyer Bekirbam. He says, I know the heart of these Bucharim, their heart is burning inside them. Continuing. I'm one of those Bucharim, just so we all know, even though it's 50 years ago. We're all one of these Bucharim. Even though today we could be 30, 40, 50, 60, or 70, doesn't matter. We're these Bucharim from 50 years ago. Continuing. And he says, he says, the Rosh Yeshivas, that they're going to their Rosh Yeshivas. She's Sadri Levad Nashir Ian. Again, he's talking that they should go to their Rosh Yeshivas, that they should tell the Rosh Yeshivas, give us, besides for the Shir Ian. Shir Ian means the Shir Ian. They learn Gemara, and it's all Ian. Ian means deep analysis, which obviously is what everything's all about. This is how we figure things out. But these Bachurim are taking advice from this Sefer, which we'll soon see, and he's saying that these Bachurim are saying that they go into their Rosh Yeshivas, and they're saying, besides for what you're giving us in Shir Ian that we should learn, Sheir Gam Lebekiyas, give us also what's called Bekiyas. Bekiyas is the concept of a Baki. Baki means that I have a lot of information. A lot of information, that's called Bekiyas. A Baki in something, it's an expert, but how do you become an expert? You have to first have a lot of something. Then, because you have so much of something, you can go and analyze and figure out, all the details. But first you have to have the Bekiyas. So these Bachar are asking the Rosh Yeshivas, this is what he's saying, to give them, besides for the Shir of Ian, give us Bekiyas also. And he says, Zechini Ledor Shabachim Hayikorim, he says, we merited, this is 50-something years ago, we merited to a generation of precious Bacharim, and he says, Rasen sich noch teure, that they are, they're, pulling, they're tearing themselves apart for Torah, yeah? And he says, he says, but they don't let them become lumdim. Okay? He's saying, continuing, he says, these Bachrim, the whole heart, they want to learn Torah. Listen to this. He says, who have shures, but they're not given, they have shures. Shures means the means, the capability, the ability, that they should actually, sprout. They should be able to have the ability to become lomdim. He says, he says, even though there are, for sure, there are yeshivas that they do have sedarim, not just Ian, also in Bekiyas. He says, yeshivas, this is 50-something years ago, we still need rachmim, that they should accept the psak din. It says, the psak din of the megaoine kodmaya ebesrai, from all the gedolim, from all the previous generations, the psak din, which this is what this sefer is all about. This is going to take some time, but we have to get this out there. We have to record this, okay? Because I know there are Bacharim that are right now in yeshiva struggling. These I'm talking about top Bacharim, not top Bacharim. That's just because, they didn't have the right chinuch. But if they're in yeshiva, that's because they want to be there. So I'm talking about this, not the ones that are not in yeshiva with the, and with the schlepped into yeshiva. Talking to how Klal Yisrael always survived, always, how we survived, very simply. Very simply. There was always politics in the whole Gullus, even before. Look at our history. But then there was always the yeshivas. That's how Torah, stayed alive, and they had nothing to do with the politics. It was a separate thing because this is how it always was. That's how we have what we have today with this whole Torah. It's all available. It's available to us. Okay, continuing, yeah. Continuing, he says, "Ima shekosvi bachrim maharba yeshivas." Says what bachrim are writing to me from many yeshivas. It's gonna take some time. We have to get this out there. Sherosh yeshivas nitni lehem rishis. That the Rosh yeshivas give them rishis, give them permission. And these Rosh yeshivas say to them, "Shetoy v'adover," that it's good. Sheyelamdi ba'atzim Gemara lebekiyas, and they should learn on their own. Yeah, Gemara bekiyas, just to have a lot of breath, a lot of Gemaras. Yeah, Hagam sheyeshem hari bachrim shalom ke'ez yoser. He says even though there are bachrim that they learn even more. Yeah. Avol, he says, bezen loy tikni adayin adover. He says, but this still didn't fix the problem. He says, continuing. He says, "Sheroiva bachrim roitzim lifters asma," because he says most bachrim want to pattern themselves. Meaning, shehaima oitzur leyomam lahoven nechitzes limud abekiyas, because they're still young. They still don't understand the value of learning. Of having bekiyas, having that breath of of Gemara. So therefore, they want to do at least as possible, right? Continuing, he says, he says, and really, this chiv is really, see, he's saying that the Bachram are asking permission, and the Rosh is saying, okay, it's okay, you can go learn Bekiyas. But he's saying, yeah, that's a small part of the Bachram, but majority, they're looking just to pattern themselves from anything extra because they still don't understand the value of having this Bekiyas to build it. The Ian gets built on the Bekiyas. So he says, he says that the Choiv, this obligation is really on the Rosh Yeshivas. Lasos, that they should make a sheer limit habekiyas lechoiv. You have to make the sheer of limit of bekiyas a choiv. That you have to do it. It should be and should be, fixed that every day. This is what you have to do. Kamo shir Ian, just like shir Ian. Okay, continuing. He says, "Ki ach," because only in v'rak adai shnei sheirim yachad. He says only. He says v'rak adai shnei sheirim, only by having these two type of shirim, which means shir Ian, but also the shir bekiyas. It goes together. The only way you can actually get, rise levels in Torah, continuing, he says, it's not possible to blossom, to become a Talmud Chacham. He says, only on this derech that was taught to us, that, halacha l'maisa, this is how we do. As we'll soon see, every generation taught this. This is what 50 years ago he's screaming about. Okay, this is the Haggadama. Okay, but we're gonna take the time. We're gonna go through the whole thing because it has to be heard. It has to. In Mamish, there's no other way we're gonna be able to make a breakthrough unless we hear these type of words. Continuing, yeah. He says, he says, after it was written to me from Meratzani Hakdosha, from Eretz Yisrael, that from Eretz Yisrael, the Gedolim said that it's good, better, that he should take the Haskoma Gam Megaon Eretz Yisrael, that he should come to Eretz Yisrael and get the Haskomas from the Gaon Eretz Yisrael. So continuing, he says, he says, therefore, ani mai bi advorm sheyotzi. He says, I'm bringing you the words that I went there to Yisrael, and he received. Sheyotzi mipi, agun akudash admer meger shlita. He says, this is from 58 years ago. Mipi agon hanoide Rav Shach shlita. From Ponovich, continuing, behind itself is Haskoma Agon Akudash Admer Rabbi Mesatmer Shlita Satmer Rebbe. Continuing, Lachazik as Asher Kasafti Bekintuzet, to strengthen what I wrote in this Kintrus. Continuing, listen to what to me, every single word here. If he has these Haskomas, this is kosher. We should. This has to be heard. This could be heard. Continuing, he says, Ein Sofik. He says, there's no Sofik by him. Soif, listen to this. Soif, Yiskabli Advarim. These words are going to be accepted. Continuing. Shehem, why? He says, Shehem Psak Halacha. He says, this is Psak Halacha. This is a Psak Halacha for all Klal Yisrael. Continuing. The Yilmudi B'chol Yeshiva. Listen to this. Listen, you have to hear these words, because he says, this will be accepted. Continuing. That it's going to be learned in every yeshiva. Continuing, the pochas meir dafim gemara says a minimum of 100 dafim. Daf is a plat, 2 sides. Yeah, gemara v'yoser or more bezman leoisen shehema b'medrega shechol lumad kvar ba'asman. Talking over here, he's saying to when a bach can already on his own learn the gemara. Okay. He says that it's going to become psak halacha that they have to learn 100 blats when you're able to already learn on your own, right? Each zman chit besides Shira Ian, asher nochet ma'od kimivan, which is so important as is all we all understand that. Continuing. The Yisrael Beglal Zeh, he says, and what's gonna come out of this is Hacheshik Lilmoid Gam Achash Oizen Es Dalsas Yeshiva, because they're gonna have this 100 blat as Zman, which you soon see will actually come out to during the average time that Bachram spend in yeshiva as of now, and have 1,000 blat that they're gonna actually own, because you're gonna soon see. He explains how to be coined it. Continuing, he says what's going to happen is they're going to have the cheshik to learn after they leave the doors of the yeshiva. Continuing, and he says v'yisgadol kvoy the Torah. Then kvoy the Torah is going to go up. Continuing, but tamidim yismachi, and the tamidim are going to be they're going to be very happy because you're in the base of it. The tamidim yodam, when they come home, they come to their homes, and the tamidim is beyodam. What they learned, it's in their hand. They didn't just go X amount of years. Continuing, we'll soon see the problem. Continuing, the Yirgishi Be'atzim, they're going to feel themselves, Sheyodam, Rav, Lahem, Bahar, Mesech, B'Shas, that they have many Mesechtas of Shas in them. Continuing, V'nois Valzeh, Yeh, Befsharisen, Leyere, the Imkish Halacha, and the benefit of this is that now that they left yeshiva, but they still have all this connection to all this the sechtas of Shas that they completed. They're gonna be now. They have the ability to go down to the depths of halacha. Continuing, lahav lemidim elamitasam, to be able to know the lemidim and its truth. Yizmechim bechelkem b'mashe zochi likis Torah, and they're gonna be extremely misamech with themselves that they merited this Kisr Shal Torah, it's crown of Torah. Continuing, Habachram, he says now he's talking to the Rosh Yeshivas over here. He said Habachram, he says these little Bachram, 13, 14, 15, 16 little Bachram, he says to the Rosh Yeshivas, Halahim b'yadam sherosh Yeshivas, they're in your hands. These Bachram come, the Rosh Yeshivas, they're in your hands. They listen to you. I'm talking over here. This is the ones that are in, the ones that want to hear, the ones that the Bachram are still connected. There's thousands of these families. Thousands. Tens of thousands. That's who I'm talking to, because this is what he was talking to. It's not, I'm giving over this message, because it has to be heard. He says, these Bachrim, they're in your hands. Yeah, it's on the Rosh Yeshiva, it's a Charayas. Continuing. Yeshnam Rak Shnei Drachim. He says, these Bachrim have two paths. There's two paths. Continuing. What are the two paths? Or that they're going to make from what they learn now in these years, Tamid Chachamim. Continuing. Or what's going to happen is they're going to come home after X amount of years empty of all. Continuing. Kasher ad atu. Until, as we see now, he says 50-something years ago, we see our own eyes. Bachrim, this is 50 years ago that he says, we see their own eyes. Hundreds of thousands, yeah, Bachrim, they don't no longer open the Gemara after the yeshiva years. In the whole life, no more. And the reason is only they don't know. They remember nothing. They don't have the ability to learn one Amud Gemara. Continuing. And they don't feel Shem Chiv Limit Gemara. They don't feel no Chiv in Limit Gemara. That we're able to see. Rosh Yeshiva's B'atzman. Continuing. He says, listen to what he's going to tell us, what took place with him 40 years prior to this. He says 40 years ago, he remembers, he's saying, in Varsha, Warsaw, in Europe, continuing. Barisi Beis HaMedrash, and he says, he saw Beis HaMedrash. There was no place to sit. It's packed. From the Balei Batim, in the nighttime, the Kvoish Lehem Sheirim. Okay? There was no room from the Balei Batim and the Bachrim. Continuing. Where are those Bachrim? He says. Can be in New York. Obviously, Baruch Hashem, there's a tremendous amount of Torah going on. Let's not get fooled over here. This is Bisman Hazeh, you're going to soon see. Continuing. He says, the bottom Medrashim Yechichi. Why? Because the lights are off. It's dark. They're empty. In the night times, they're empty. Laila. Continuing. He says, where are those that sat many years in yeshivas? When they were a bacher. And then they sat many years in Koil, yeah? Why are they no longer opening the Gemara? And he says it's not a secret. He only ruins those bare hate because we see very clearly the reason. He says, they don't remember anything. There's no memory. They don't have the ability to do what's called lena. Lena is where, before you're taught, you're taught how to learn the Gemara, but do it on your own. Just do it on your own. Continuing. He says, the reason is because he says the reason is because they were trained only to learn Ian, deep analysis. He says, in Mefarshim, right away you get to the Mefarshim. They never first did the whole Gemara, the whole Masechta Bekiyas, just Gemara and the Rashi. But right away they went into the Ian, continuing, which is extremely important, but it goes together with the Bekiyas, as you'll soon see. Continuing, and they're only learning Ian in the night times. There's man kotzer, yeah, sure. And are you saying, and to learn Ian in the night time, there's man kotzer, yeah, sure. When the time, it's a short time, you can't, right? Right? He's talking here, these Balibatim, which they came out of the yeshivas and the koil and they went to work, and now they're not able to go learn anymore because they were only trained how to learn Ian, right? And now it's nighttime, and you can't do Ian in the nighttime, right? Because they just finished a long day of work, and they're tired. So if they're only trained how to do Ian, they cannot learn basically. They don't know how to do just Bekias because they weren't trained. Continuing, he says, therefore, that's why they don't learn at all. Continuing, and he says, basically, what comes out of this is, he says, it comes out because they learned in yeshivas and koilul without any cheshbon, basically there was no system for how they were learning, there was no cheshbon, there was no accountability. Continuing, he says, he says, this is the question. He says, he says, we know, he says, this is 50 years ago. The colleges, he writes Moshe Kodesh, the colleges, Yesh lam cheshbon. There is an accountability in college, right? As a college, when you finish college, everyone has to know exactly what they learned. That's how you get the degree, right? He says, but he says, it's precious bacharim. Shaloni, shalom the yeshivas of koil, serious nefesh, bacharim. It's very hard to go learn. And they go and learn in the serious nefesh all these years. As sure as he, Shiachli Nova the base and breaking the call. And he says, and it comes out the possibility that they should go all these years and come home empty of all. He says, Hayesh Chil Hashem, is there a bit greater Chil Hashem than this? Continuing, he says, the big shaila is the following: Madiya Bachu Yeshivas Einam Matzlichim Belamidam. He says the big shaila is why the Bacham Yeshivas, they're not matzliach in their learning. Why? He says, he says, because they're being taught sheurim that they can't understand. Because it's all Ian, they're constantly forced to review things that the seichel is not koilet. They didn't develop enough of the bekiyas to be able to process the Ian. He says, he says, this matter is screaming. Tzoik means it's comes from a deep place, screaming ad leva shamayim until leva shamayim. Till shamayim. He says, he says, I have more than 1,000 letters. Okay, this is what he's saying, from many countries. He says that precious Bachrim are crying to him. That they're sitting and they're listening. But they don't know the shiurim. This is 50 plus years ago. We only go down, not because we go down. It's when things don't get addressed, they don't do the maintenance. Eventually, it just slowly things fall apart more and more. Continuing, he says, I see this with my own eyes. When I went to these yeshivas to look at it. Remember, this he has here haskamas from these gedolim that I mentioned earlier. Continuing. He's saying over then that this kuntras, this little sefer already did tremendous stuff. That the royas amachtom sheyashni biyodai, and from what I see, these letters that I have in my hand, he says, Yesh liroy shekvar lomdi adayom. He says, I'm able to see that it's being learnt, from this country. Much more is being learnt in Bekias, he says. He said, 5%. He says 5%, but we're only accomplishing 5%, he's saying. That's what he's saying. Bachum say akim, Bachum are crying, screaming. The Marnafsham, she lehem leazor. Bachum are writing to this Yid that he should come help them. The Shtadl Eitzel Rosh Yeshiva that he should, sit and explain to the Rosh Yeshivas, that they should organize the Shiurim Lefi Mashim Avaksham Mehem Gedolei Adar, what the Gedolei Adar wants. Bacham Eikom Roitzim, he says the Bacham, the pressure Bacham, they want Chol Nafsham Litzmoich Gedolei Torah. The Bacham want to grow to be Gedolei Torah. This is what the Bacham want. They want to be Gedolei. They want to be Gedolim, Gedolei Torah. That's what the Bachram wants. It's all Hashem Shemayim when it comes from the Bachram. We have to know this. Continuing, he says, L'chayin, he says, Al Gadoli Rosh Yeshiva Aleim Achoiv Moit L'Kayim Es HaPsag Din Megaonei Hazman. He says, it's on the Rosh Yeshivas to be Mekayim Psag Din of the Gaonei Hazman. They were all alive, these tzaddikim at the time. She has Gichi that you have to be on top. From today going further, it should no longer be this, this thing. Meaning that he says that you have to learn every yeshiva with a cheshbon, as an accountability. You see me, I am Proteus, I'll call Bacher. You have to be able to look at every Bacher, know his situation. How many new blat of Gemara did he learn this week? How many does he remember? And how many does he know well in the end of the half of the half a year? Continuing. And how many dafim Gemara does he know well when he leaves the doors of yeshiva? Continuing. He says, and if this is done, you can learn with the Bachram with a cheshbon, with an accountability. He says, then we won't have this problem anymore. Literally, that we'll see that Bachram by the hundreds of thousands, that they're going to come home as yeshivas after leaving the doors of the yeshivas and the koil, we're not going to see it anymore because they're going to stay in learning. Continuing. He says, after the Bacharim have Yediyas, knowledge, in many Mesechtas of Shas, then it's easy. Then on their own they can already complete. Then now we already know how to learn, Shulchan Aruch, Aruch Chaim, the Yeridea, the things that they know. The things that they didn't learn in yeshiva, because what is Shulchan Aruch? What is Shulchan Aruch? What is Arba Chelke Shulchan Aruch? Right? I'm talking here to the people. This is for the people that are in learning. It's the final Psak Halacha. Obviously today you need the nice Kalim to know how to make the Psak Halacha, but Shulchan Aruch is the final outcome from Shas. So when they know the source material well, which is Shas, and they know the Gemaras, now they take the Shulchan Aruch, they're able to go through and know how to reconstruct halacha because they already have Shas. They have the source in them. Continuing. And he says, he says every person has to allow this to take root in his heart. The Leah is baki that you should know. To be a baki, to be a baki in Torah, it's not possible. He says rak only im choizer ala gamar kama palm. You have to be able to review the Gemara many, many times. Until you know well all the inyanim that are surrounding the Gemara. Okay? There's no other way. He says, Nekava, he says, he's hoping, in Nekava, he's expecting. Shegedoyle Rosh Yeshivas, that the Gedoyle Rosh Yeshivas, Al Ya'achri Melasad Shir B'Kvias Eitz L'Shir Hi'in, that they should not delay in setting up Shir B'Kiyas right side by side the Shir Ian. Shir L'Talmidim Yediyas HaTorah, so that the Talmidim, the students, should have Yediyas HaTorah, Shir Be'efshel Lahem Lahoven Lahaskel Leirid La'umkun Shal HaInyonim Sovim Es Lamidam, because they have the B'Kiyas, now they have the breadth of information to be able to now go in, to understand, how to go deep, because you need to have the Bekiyas. A Beliha Bekiyas, he said, without this Bekiyas, Miven Alamitosam, it's not possible. You don't have the context. Bekiyas is the context. You can't be able to go down to the amitis of the Gemara, right? Are you able to see this from the Rosh Yeshivas, themselves? Continuing, he said, he says he's davening that it should be accepted. These words, that he wrote. After he said he did drisha, he investigated very hated yeshivas shoyness in many yeshivas. He says, "V'niska oida pam ledor der." He says we should merit again another generation of deya, of knowledge, of das. Dor shel tamidei chachamim v'gedoylei Torah, a generation of tamidei chachamim and gedoylei Torah. Continuing, the Yitzchok Moshe Yori Arnaini, and they should, light up our eyes. And we should merit from such a generation, from the Yeshia, Bekorav, the Bias Mashiach, El Malchus Shemayim al Oretz, and coming of Mashiach, and the Malchus Shemayim al Oretz. Malchus Shemayim should be right here. He says, anyone has a question, reach out to me. Shimon first. He's telling you, reach out to me. You have to see what means Gedolim. Gedolim. You have a question, reach out to me. Call me up on the phone. Talk to me. Okay, this is the Hakdama. I know it's 37 minutes. We're going to jump in because this message has to be heard. He starts off, yeah? He says, Mokam kam haske es ovas. He says, now it's time we have to remember our ovas, our fathers. He says, he says, the parents, the fathers, right? They think that they fulfill their obligation. Yeah, the parents think that they fulfill their obligation in Talmud Torah by sending the children, the Bachram, to yeshivas. Okay, continuing. Yodi, he's saying, he says they should know they're living, they're Toas. It's a mistake. Continuing. He says, he says, look deeply into this kintrus, meaning, analyze this kintrus, the yodi, and then they're going to know, that it's on them, the parents, an obligation, lachkor, they have to investigate, that if this yeshiva you're sending your child to, if they're learning the yeshiva shir, gam le bekiyas, chisma shir ian, and they're also learning the kiyas, besides for the ian, continuing, the yishlichi as benayim, he says, and make sure you send your parents only to rak the yeshivas ka'eli, only to the yeshivas like this, shasidri es ha-she'irim, that they, arrange the shiurim, api ma sheposki gedoyle hadar, this is what the gedoyle hadar paskin, okay, continuing. Okay. Liach HaShas, he gives a Liach of Shas, which I'm just going to show everyone, the Liach of the Shas. We all know this, but he's showing you a Liach HaShas. You have basically the whole Shas, and he shows you, all the Masechtas. He says, Lamalati, which one do you learn, and Zoicher, which one do you actually remember? Okay? He continues. He says, Betkufa ze zi sha'oni Chaim. He says, in this, tekufa, in this time that we're living, he says, Chadoshos oni roin. We see new things. Again, this is for those that are in learning. We just had a Dira Torah event. A Dira Torah. Tens of thousands of people attended it. I'm talking to the people that understand and they're machshav what's going on with the studying in yeshivas. This is the lifeblood. This is what it's all about. This is what he said. He says, "Kifas dish ani Chaim." When we're living, he says, in these times, chadoshes oni roim. We see something new. He says, why? He says, Kol am va'am chol medina medina roitzim lios chafshi. He says, every nation, every country, everybody wants to be chafshi. Chafshi means independence. Yeah. Ve'ein ritzoinim oi lios kefifen lemalchias acheres. And nobody wants to be, ruled, by different governments. Continuing, Shia Sham Kalanya colony. Yeah, he says that we're living in times where every nation, every country, everybody wants independence. Nobody wants to be subjugated to a different country. Continuing, Medina Polonis. Everybody wants to be independent. All different countries. This is what he's saying 50 years ago. This is what we're seeing. Okay? He says, Pomem ade mechomas kvedes noldi mamloches chadoshes le'im mispar. He says, and what happens is, he says, sometimes after, big wars, it gets born new governments. Okay? Continuing. He says, "V'gam abale malachas." He says, and also the bale malachas means the people that own the companies and the businesses. The bale malachas. And we see, with our eyes. This is 50 years ago that people that have businesses, that they used to, they used to be dealt with, by they used to deal with their workers like avodim, yeah, servants, yeah, slaves. And he says the chedele parnas es mishpachtam, and in order to make parnasa for the families, he said and people had to work very, very hard, crushing labor, ma boiker ad ishan laila, from early morning to late at night. And after that, after being all tired out from a whole day of work, they lived chayat tsar. It was life was hard. Okay, continuing. And he says during these times, these people that these avodim, they opened their eyes. And they all got together, these avodim. Venivri Yaninas. Unions. He says, and they created unions, okay? Negrit soinam shall abale batim, okay? Against the will of the balibatim, those that ran the companies. So unions got created. Saying again, this is all the same time, 50-something years ago, where he's describing where things in the world were, where all the countries were, everybody was trying to have their own, to be independent, and wars were fought, and people, there were new governments were formed. He says, side by side, what took place among the people is that the people that were avodim, they created unions, which was against what the Balei Batim wanted, yeah. And without their haskama, okay, without their haskama, she'avod me'eli parkim me'al rosham ha'ol v'hashalshelis shel barzel, and these avodim threw off this oil of barzel from this yoke. They threw it off. L'chayis mizeh chayitzar, and they suffered a lot from this. And now he's saying, as a result, what happened is, in the case of now they only work rak aborim shoyz b'shavia, and they only work now 40 hours in a week. And they basically they make the same in the 40 hours. And he said, what happens is now, because these unions were created, now they were able to only work 40 hours a week, and now they make the same what they made, and now they're able to live. He brings a lashon ishtachas gafnoi, each person under his own vine. They have the ability, and they're done with work. Now they're free. Continuing, he says bohayon, and he says, and it came the the time came shegam habale malachas yodim besides that, and the bale malachas also knew of this. The Liyasid savings account. He says that these bale malachas also learned how to make what's called a savings account. Okay, yeshnam harbe ma bale malachas sheshnam yoyse moed ba bank me bale beisim shalahem. And because these now they became bale batim, right? Because they're only doing 40 hours a week, they learned the concept of a savings bank, a savings account, and they started saving, and now they have more money. They can have more money than the bale batim shalem, more than the people running the companies, because they went from servants, and then they learned how to make unions, and now they have more because they learned how to save. Okay, continuing, he says Devorim Arli says, these things loy boy derech mikra imamel. These things don't come about just suddenly. He says it comes about only achad hishtadlus imachomas kevedas. It came after many hard battles. Neged v'tzoynim shel habali batim, against the will of the bali batim, meaning the people running the companies. But he says, but what came out after all this toil, Yatsi b'nitzochen b'machomazi, they came out victorious. Continuing, and he says, he says, what I'm trying to bring out with all this, he says, it's very, very Kaddish, important for our times, but kifazi beprat, and specifically in this time. Continuing, he says, Ma'oz darchel dover in bachar yeshivas. He says, we have to speak. Ma'oz darchel the dover in bachar yeshivas. He says we have to speak to the bachar of the yeshivas. No, I'm reading it wrong. He says, I used to be what I used to do. I used to speak to the bachrim from yeshivas, from various yeshivas when it was bein azmanim. Leida hashkafasam b'chlal b'prat. I used to just want to hear what's the hashkafa. How are things? B'chlal b'prat. He wanted to know. He's obviously we'll soon see. He's from the Gedolei Hadar. He wanted to know what's the massive in the yeshivas. And he says, and I was amazed by this love for Torah that was taking root in their hearts. Right? This Tamimias, Midas, Yeshuras, and this, straight Midas Shalahem. He ad lahafli. It was an amazement to see. Ha'emes, Shemedinas Europe. And he's coming from Europe, and he's saying, and he says it's amazing because in Europe, he says we never saw what we're seeing now. This is 50 years ago. He's saying the matzav of the Bachram when they come back Ben Zmanim with this desire to learn. Continuing. Hemer Yekore Ametzias Voili Tumet Tanig B'divrei Amam, and I had tremendous enjoyment whenever I would speak to them. Easy because I saw Sheshlem Seichel Yasher, and I saw they have a Seichel Yasher. The Cheshoin is Lieben Boy Bekirvam, and they have tremendous amount of Keshoin, talents and their hearts aflame. Chol Nafshem, and the whole nefesh, him eroitum lias to chom and flogum. It's so clear for him that these bachrim want to be tamid chachomim meflogim, join tamid chachomim, but by roitzim of loya, and they want to swallow us. Kol shas famach. Everybody has the desire to learn the whole shas. This is what he's saying. He says avol. He says avol loiken hoyadavar, but he says, but that's not what was happening. When I would speak to these bachrim, when I would meet up with these bachrim again after a couple of years, when they no longer wanted to travel to the yeshivas, because it came the time they have to go look for parnasa, Perik Ish Makadish, or to learn Perik Ish Makadish, which, to get married, continuing. Those Bachrim that learned in yeshivas many years, the same one that he was describing. When I would speak to them, and I would see not just that they're not happy with their whole situation of their learning. He says even more. He says that there's atzvus. There's this atzvus. They're just not happy. And it's very clear that they're not happy about their situation. And he says, and it became clear to me that they're full of regrets. That they, spend all this time in yeshiva. And in general, I'm able to see they're no longer the same bachrim that I spoke to prior. They have a different hashkafa. Anyway, he says, this bothered me, he says, even more, tremendously. And I investigated this Indian, very much, and to figure out how did this come about in our times. And many bachrim regret from the learning. That they spent all this time in yeshivas. Anyway, when the Barati Ben Yizem come to the Torah, he says, I spoke with this Indian, the many Gedol the Torah, and it came out with a certainty, clarity, among all the Gedol the Torah, Shatzedek Ata Mei Achizem, that these Bachrim are right 100%. This is what he says. Continuing. Bachrim Eili Mosrius Nafshim. These Bachrim, they were moiser than nefesh. This is 50 years ago. It wasn't like today. They were moiser nefesh, these Bachrim. Nasi li yeshivas im his lahavas kol kach. That they went to yeshivas with this lahavas kol kach. Ima'asi b'chai oil mazeh, and they, because they got into learning, they despised, chaya oil mazeh. Because that's how the only way to grow in yeshivas, you have to, this is what they teach them, because this is the mahalach, this is how you grow in Torah. So these bachrim, they were moiser nefesh, chol nafsham v'chefsam hoy lahakdish hashanah maloli. All they wanted, everything that they had was to be mekadosh these years in learning, Yom v'gamel is more days and nights, Lil Torah. Ibit Kisam, Ibit Kivosam, and with the hopes, that they'll grow into be giant Talmidei Chachamim. Continuing, he says, Iman Asamahem, what happened with them? After many years learning yeshivas, Roy Ba'atzmon, they saw in themselves that there's no accounting. They're not able to make an accounting. They're not able to see what they accumulated. They felt unaccomplished. After they see, they come home and they're empty of everything. They know nothing. Continuing. This Bacher went to yeshiva with big machshavas. And he thought he was going to grow into this great Talmid Chacham. And he thought, at least I'll remember one Masechta Baal Peh, yeah? And now he comes home, the Oimid at Asma Lefnei Argo's Svarm, and he takes a look at all the Svarm that he has. Lefnei Veroy Lefon of his Shas, and he sees Shas in front of him. He always a Cheshbon Nefesh, he makes a Cheshbon Nefesh. And he asks himself, what do I remember from this whole Shas that he just spent all these years learning? And he comes to a conclusion with a clarity. He doesn't even remember 5 blot of Gemara. Continuing. It says, and it's possible that this Bacher, he spent 10 years in yeshiva, 13 to the 23, let's just say. That when he'll open a Masechta that he didn't learn yet, yeah, it won't be clear to him that he won't be able to learn one new blot of Gemara on his own. Even just at a basic level, without really, analyzing if he's learning it the right way. From that time, he says, amazing. He says a pachad fell on me. He says v'choishev, and he says he contemplated manas many. He's saying this is what this bacher. He's saying this is what took place. This is what takes place in that bacher's mind. Yeah, it falls a tremendous pachad manas many. What's going to become of me? I just spent all these years in yeshiva. And I can't even learn one blot Gemara alone. I just want to clarify. This is 50-something years ago, before Art Scroll, before all that, before it was out. This is to the Loim de Torah. This is to the Loim de Torah. This is to the Loim de Torah. Continuing. Because of this, he says, I see, he says, and this is the reason why, if these Bachim have tainus, they're right. Continuing. It's already an hour. Wow. But this has to be heard. Continuing. Bashayla, he says, the question is, how did this happen? He says, he says, majority of the Bachrim 50 years ago, he's saying it's for sure that they were not Masmidim. That it's not because they weren't Masmidim. No, they were all Masmidim. Look, he says, Bachrim Eli Asmidi Bilmidam. Masmidim means that they were, consistent with what they were. They were really trying. Okay, he says it's not because they weren't Masmidim. They were trying. Masmid doesn't mean that you do a little and you know a lot. That's not a masmid. Masmid is that you consistently, continue learning. That's masmidim. He says, and the reason 50-something years ago, these bachim were masmidim. They were masmidim. He says, "V'lomdi ma boiker ad ishan laila ba'asmod in the floor." They learn from early morning to late at night. This is our generation because we have to look at it. 50 years ago, we didn't have all these distractions. We didn't have all the technology stuff. Continuing, he says, "Rak ikvi oisam shelo yanichi oisam b'shem oifim." He says, "Rak ikvi oisam." He says they were held back. He says. And he says they were not allowed, they weren't allowed to develop, to become Tamid Chacham. And he's going to explain why. He says, therefore, he said, so that's why everyone is wondering, everyone's asking, who? Who is the one holding them back from all this? Who is holding these Bachurim back from becoming Tamid Chacham? Continuing. Teretz, he says, this is the teretz. He says, the answer is Haderech HaLimid. Beroi v'yeshivas, Ze Haderech Gorm Lehem. He says, the Derech HaLimid, the way they go about, the Derech, this, in Roi v'yeshivas, he says, this is what's causing it. He says, it doesn't allow them to become the Tamid Chachamim, even if they're doing, Hasmidi, that means that they're constantly learning very much. And he says, and the guilt, he says, the blame is not on these Bachurim. He says, Ein oni bo kan likvoil al ezim yeshivas befrati. He says, I'm not coming here to put blame on any yeshivas in particular. Continuing. He says, Rak al derech yeshivas bechlal. He says, I'm coming to talk about the derech yeshivas bechlal. And we have to know this is still going on 100% right now. Continuing. He says, Hine kefi asherini. He says, as we see, he says, Lo rov yeshivas b'derech doim lezeh. He says, this is how it is in rov yeshivas, okay? Is the following. Lamoshel, he says, Lamoshel, kishloim dem sechas gitten. When they learn Mesechus Gittin, Abachrim Eli, these Bachrim, starting this man, learn Mesechus Gittin, Rotzen Memoiches farm, they run to this farm store, Egel Chavere, and his friends, Liknois Bim Atamos, with the little money they had back then, Asher Bekisam, Perushim Shoinim on Mesechus Gittin, they get all the Mefarshim on Mesechus Gittin. Even though that money was given for them, for their personal needs, they're using the money to go buy all the mefarshim. Continuing, and in the first daf, they open the Masech, the first daf, right away they start analyzing the Rashba, the Rishonim, the Ritva, the Shar Sifra Rishonim, the Achronim, the Choshim, the Machshavas, the Lahakshas, the Leferik. And right away they're ready diving in. These Bachurim, they're doing Rishonim right away, Rashba Ritva, and they're ready analyzing right away. Continuing, he says, Bachurim Yikorim Aloli, he says, these precious Bachurim, they don't even know what a get is, And what this whole Masechet is discussing, he says, one whole week, beginning of this man, they waste the Yoishin al Daf Arishan, they stay at the first daf. Continuing. Remember, he said, they did not come here to put blame on any specific yeshiva in particular, but this is someone that knew the yeshiva system very well. We have to know this is going on right now. Okay? He said, and similarly in every single daf. They're busy, having machshavas on things that they have no clue of yet. He says, he says, how is it possible to know the word of the Rishonim, that their words are very deep, if they don't yet know the whole Masechta, at a basic level, at a Bekiyas level. Continuing, he says he's basically giving a solution, but you'll see this There's a lot more we're going to hear. He says, he says, wouldn't it be better if they would, the Rosh Yeshivas would learn with these Bachrim for 3 months, who were showing him kol Masechus Gittin. The first 3 months, a whole Masechus Gittin. Yeah? Tahini, meaning, every day a new daf. He says, yeah, make sure you doctor very much, but Rashi and Rashi, and learn certain toisvus that are needed. Till they know very well, kol Masechtas Yashar, till they know the whole Masechta, straight. He says, kol Masechta Yashar v'hipach, backwards and forwards, just basic Gemara and the Rashi and certain toisvus that are needed, yeah, for 3 months, yeah, 90 days, every day another blot. Again, after that, the last 2 months of the Zaman, then now you have the whole Masechta to do Ian Godel with these Bachurim in Marashba, the Ritva, yeah, Pacific Rishonim, the Sham Farshim, and all the Farshim, or figure out a different way. But the Iker is he said the main thing is that you have to arrange that they should learn 100 daf Gemara in a half a year. Continuing, he says, Kirak all zivini as ashal of name. He says, because that's the only way they're going to know what's in front of them. He says, He says the words of the Rishonim, they're very deep. He says, it's not possible to know what they're talking about. And to go down to the soiv das of the Rishonim, if you don't know all the Yonim that's surrounding this whole Masechta, because you didn't go through it yet, yeah. He says, and therefore, certainly, you can't have pilpul, you can't go, give and take. And with these Bachrim, you can't do, the Rosh Yeshiva is talking to, you can't do pilpul with these Bachrim, right? If they don't even know what we're talking about, the man was like, a fool walking in the dark. Continuing, he says, he says, Rosh Yeshiva's Nishrishi Hashirim Be'ezadafen Berosh Masechta Shalom the Oisen Kvam Mei Pamim. He says, and if the Rosh Yeshivas they would do this for themselves, and it would take root, these shiurim, with all these dafim from the Masechta that they're learning, because they learned it 100 times. Halol lehem l'das, says, even if the Rosh Yeshiva knows this whole Masechta, right? The Rosh Yeshiva, obviously, let's assume he knows. If you learn Masechta Gittin, you're the Rosh Yeshiva, you're learning daf, the first daf in Masechta. If you're the Rosh Yeshiva, obviously you know the whole Masechta, right? And he may have learned it 100 times. He says, Halol lehem l'das, he says, but they should know. But for these Bachrim, this is new stuff. Continuing. And he started talking to these Bachrim about the Rashba and the Ritva, a different Rishon or a different Ahron. He said, it's not possible. They're not able to understand these words. He says, he says, basically, he says, what these Bachim are really doing, they're just repeating the word, but they're not able to understand it yet. It's mamish like when we see a bar mitzvah bacher, he's 13, he says that bar mitzvah drasha. Yeah, you have some bachrim, they really know what they're saying, but many bar mitzvah bachrim, they have a whole pshatel. It's very nice, and because he just turned bar mitzvah, but we all know he's quoting right away all the Rishonim and the pilpul, But we know he's a mitzvah bach. He doesn't really understand it. Yeah, he says this is what is taking place when you learn with the bacharim. Right away, you jump in before you give them the whole masechta. He says, "Zois amrli harbe bachim asher." He says, "This is what many bachim told me themselves." Shekoisen ala pinkas loshen harebi shaloi be English. He says that they're busy writing down in their notebooks in English exactly what the Rebbe is telling them. They don't even know what they're writing. They're just writing. Listen, I'm going to continue further. We're going to go. I don't know. We're not going to finish the whole thing. We're going to have to split it up. Let's continue. Simply God b'Torah echad. A God b'Torah told me the following. He says, he says that he heard directly from the Gaon of Brod, the Broi the Rav. Continuing. So this Reb Shimon Fuerst is saying, a certain Gadol b'Torah told me that he heard directly from the Gaon of Brod, Ztzl. He says, not he heard from one, heard from another. He says, I heard from someone that heard it from the Gaon of Brod. Okay? He says, Pa'amachas nosa lekabel es pnei Gaon Reb Chaim Ztzl Brisk. He says, the Gaon of Brod went one time to go greet Reb Chaim. He went to visit Reb Chaim Ztzl of Brisk. Reb Chaim of Brisk. Okay? As Benoi Rebbe Velvel Zal Shenaz Achach Gon Hadar. The Gaon of Brod, I think, did a shidduch with Reb Chaim of Brisk, and he's talking about his son, the Velvel. He's the chassan, and he's saying how he's going to become the Gaon of the dark. Continuing, he says. And he says, our Velvele, he says, Velvele, his son, right? Ben Tezayin Shalom. He was about 16 years old. Again, just the story is the Gaon of Brod is going to do it. He's doing a shidduch with Reb Chaim of Brisk, and he's saying how his son Velvel is going to be the Gaon of the Dar, and he's saying this Velvel, he was 16 years old at the time, yeah? He said, Omar Agon Reb Chaim Lagon of Brod. He says, Reb Chaim of Brisk says to the Gaon of Brod, he says, Man Velvel, Gedein Gans Shas, mit Rashi. He says, he remembers Gans Shas, Bavli, mit Rashi. Okay? He remembers the whole Shas with Rashi. In Lashon Kodesh, he says, B'ni Ze'ev, my son Ze'ev, Velvel Ze'ev, Zoichu es Kol Shas im Rashi. Continuing. Rav Mebrod, Oman Neshtoim, he stood up, his Rav Mebrod, he was amazed that he made such a statement. He says, V'shol as a Gaon Reb Chaim, and he asked the Gaon Reb Chaim, he says, Reb Chaim, what happened with you, he says. Zad ven is ba'ach bekiyas ocha Indians. Since when by you is bekiyas also an Indian? He says, he says, but by you, we only learn Be'in, right? Everyone knows about Brisk and Chaim of Brisk. We only learn Be'in. Since when? He's asking him, you're praising that your son knows Shas with Rashi. That's Bekiyas. Since when is that something by you? So in Lashon Kodesh, this is Reb Chaim. He asked Reb Chaim, what happened to you? Since when did they learn by you in your yeshiva Bekiyas? Ask him, learn them Oz Rak Be'in. Only learn Be'in by you. Listen to this. The Gaon Reb Chaim of Brisk says the following. He replies, Broi the Ruv. He says, Broi the Ruv. Listen to this. Ba'mir, he says, Reb Chaim of Brisk. We know Brisk yeshiva, Reb Chaim Brisk. He says, Ba'mir oy emetz zukt a pilpul. Someone's saying a pilpul. Pilpul means he's pilpul. He's going to the Gemara, he's doing a pilpul, he's building. He says, emetz zukt a pilpul. I did before a gedenk ganz shas mit Rasha is dus by me a pilpul shel hevel. He says it's a pilpul of hevel. Hevel means it's thin ear wide. He says etzli. He says by me and here mishiyet. Doesn't matter who it is. Many people begamura. He says a people in the gemura. Teirim shezoicher as kol shas. He says before you know, he remembers the whole shas. So it's actually pilpul shel hevel. It's a pilpul shel hevel. Continuing, lechein toma ekra. He says, this is what Reb Shimon first. He's continuing. He says, that's why Reb Shimon first. He says, that's why for me, it's a wonder. Where did this new derech come in all these in many yeshivas? Hello, yeshivas misyachsen is last one because where does the yeshivas that we have today? The yeshivas. I'm talking about the majority of the yeshivas. Where they misyachsen? Which derech are they following? Reb Chaim was the Talmud, right? That showed us the way. The majority of had to go derech a limit, and that's why he says he's amazed that this derech is happening. Continuing, he says, he says, if you look at what we just discussed, they're as far as Mizrach to Marav from this derech of Reb Chaim. B'fnei Eze Yomim Malachti Levakar. He's saying another story. He says, many days ago, he says, I went Levakar es Harav Agun Atzadik Arabi Menav Minsk Shlita. He says he went to visit the Rebbe of Rav Minsk. This is 50 years ago. Okay, and Indian, and we're discussing different Indians. And the Barani Gam came Indians there. We also spoke about this Indian on Derech HaLimit. For Omali Shelafnai Zman Ma, and he said to me that before a certain time, it's not Elab Tam Chochem Echad, certain Tam Chochem, discussed Al Benoi on his son Shalom and Harbe Shonim Yeshiva that he learned many years in Yeshiva. Chashabola Veselis Akev, and he came home. Roya. And he saw he didn't begamers, and he saw he didn't have any real complete ideas. But also he misipik was there, and this the Naminsky Rebbe 50-something years ago was telling his Shimon first that his son come home from yeshiva after being there for a long time, and the father is Tam Chochem, and he sees this son just doesn't have no Shem Yediyah Begamris. He doesn't have a complete understanding of things. And he said that Sheim is Supik, and he's not sure if his son Yoid the Lil Madaf Gemor Bepashtis, if his son can even learn one blot Gemor Bepashtis, just Av Beli Ian God without Ian at all. Continuing, the Barti Gamken and God B'Torah, and then he's saying, I spoke to another God B'Torah. And he told me the following lashon. He says, "By me is nish kan sofik." He says, "By me, it's not even a question." He says, "See, can you learn a blat gemura to nish? If you know that I learn a blat gemura or not," he says, "Ich bin sicher as I can nish." I'm certainly he doesn't know how. While azoy me learned hand in the yeshivas. This is 50 years ago. The way they're learning today in the yeshivas. You can't learn a blat gemura. You can't learn even one whole blat gemura. Okay, continuing. He says, "Lusha Kodesh, etzli ein sofek. In yedai lulmud the asmedaf gemara. It's not even a question if they can learn one blat gemara in any day, or they don't know." He says, "Buddha etzli is clear to me that they don't know." The way they're learning today in the yeshivas, he says, not possible. Shem or even later that they should be able to on their own learn one blat gemara. Continuing, and he says, I myself I recognize many bochurim that they don't know how to learn by themselves one blat gemara. Even though they're learning with great hasmada, many years in yeshiva. Many of them, they regret that they wasted so much time, they wasted their years in yeshiva. They're not even embarrassed to say this straight out. They no longer open the Gemara. 50 years ago, this was the matzav. Anyway, the peli and it's a wonder. It's oisen habachim asmon, and these bachim themselves oy lifnai zman kotzer and spori that in the past they used to praise themselves. Shavi yeshivasam lamdi bezman ha'achron, that in the yeshiva in the last month they learned which means in a half a year Yid Beis Dafim Gemara. They learned 12 blot Gemara. They used to praise they used to think that was considered something special. They learned 12 blot Gemara. Yesh mehem shechashvi shehen yos yechsanim shevishivasam lamdi rak asara dafim. He said it's a wonder that Baruch will come home from the Zaman and they think that this is the right thing. And they said, we learned 12 blot Gemara in a half a year. And then some even thought that it was even greater. They only learned 10 blot Gemara. Continuing, he says, and he says, is it possible for anyone in the whole world to believe that if you learn 10 or 12 blot in a half a year, many God Latorah, that's possible to develop from these bachrim God Latorah. Even a simple tamachochem, you can't. You have to get to the end of this whole thing because he clarifies everything. This is from 50 years ago, and he has the askamas from the Gedolim that we're living off today. It's not a stira, the Ian, but you'll soon see the Bekiyas without the Bekiyas. It's not possible. Okay, I'm going to stop over here. I thought I'll do the whole thing, but there's a few more pages. I need to take a break, but I'm going to continue this because we have to finish this, and this hopefully can be shared. You'll soon see, he's talking to the Bachram straight to the Bachram, and we have to know, Bachram is you, me. You're 30, 40, 50, 60, because we were those Bachram. And we'll soon see that we can mamish, now that we know that we were held back. It's not blaming anyone in particular. We were held back. This is how it was. You can call it trauma, you can call it this. You'll soon see. He wanted to raise a dar of Yeridea. Gedolei Adar. And that can only happen if we're able to actually go through Shas. It's not possible to become a Gadol if you don't actually go through. We're going to continue, Mitzvah Shem.